Welcome back. We have a much happier version of Just Rank Pod this week. I'm Jimmy. There's Dink. There's Joe. There's Chris. Welcome back. We have a pretty fun episode here. We're doing supergroups. There's a lot of confusion of what a supergroup is, so I have my index card, and it is a supergroup, a successful rock group or one formed by musicians already famous from playing in other famous groups. So we're going to do our top, best, favorite 4 of those in an honorable mention. So because of the title, I just wanted to throw something out there real quick. Supergroups. There's a super group of people that created my world of music, and I just want to shout out to them today. The first one is my brother. Without my brother, I wouldn't have had Rush. I wouldn't have had AC/DC. I wouldn't have had just Zeppelin. I wouldn't have had Sabbath. So thank you, John. I love you. My mom had music playing 24/7. ABBA, Johnny Mathis, just Sly and the Family Stone, Zeppelin, Kiss, had all that stuff. And I want to thank my wife. My wife throws so much new music at me every single day. Sometimes it's head spinning, but most of the time it's pretty cool memories. So I don't know if you guys have any of those people. If not, we can move on.
Without preparation or preparation H, I have my mom, obviously, my sister. I mentioned in a couple episodes about a guy that lived down the road that him and I listened to metal. He's the one that kind of got me into metal, and it was from his older brother, had some metal in the house and stuff. So that's Mike Barker. And that's really it as far as serious influences. And I guess I can mention my wife too. She keeps me up to date on a lot of country, and I know you guys hate country, so we will probably never do a country show unless I can really bend your arms. But yeah. But she also loves Adele and some other stuff that isn't really in my wheelhouse that she's got me to appreciate. So
I know when we talked about this before, I didn't really have anything, but when I thought about it, like I had one sister, I had 2 older sisters, and one was really big into like Roberta Flack and James Ingram and like shit like that. And the other one was into Deep Purple and the Eagles and Zeppelin. And like, so that's probably where I get my array of like, I like all kinds of pop and R&B and rock and heavy metal and stuff, probably from influences like that. But most of it was from my friends and like-minded music, like when I met Dink and other things like.
Yeah. Lots of friends, right? Not to dismiss other friends, but yeah, like Chris included, right? Like you turned me on to some stuff when we first met, Mazzy Star, and some stuff I didn't know. I was like, oh,
Joe, yeah,
awesome, yeah. So yeah, there's tons of friends. It's just impossible to name them all, but some really stick out.
Joe, probably my family. I come from a big family, so they all. When you have 5 brothers or 6 brothers and sisters, they all listen to different things. All of them. My wife, because she just brings other stuff since we've been together for almost 30 years now, or over 30 years.
Dawkins, I love you, Gina.
Bring on the Russians.
I might embarrass somebody here because I was a young kid learning how to become a musician. I'll say Jimmy, because Jimmy taught me what it took to be a really good musician. So.
Oh man, Joe, I love you. Same thing. Back at you.
Too late now. I said it first.
Yeah.
No, it's cool though, right? Like you're right. Like I never even thought about it, and it kind of does fit for super groups, super people, like you said. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Wait, all right. Enough with the cheesy love bullshit. Let's start this off. I believe Dink, you're up.
Dink is in the house.
Dink is number 1. Our super Dink is
number 2.
As he's labeled.
Super Dink.
All right, I will start with my number 4.
Did I get a super?
Mad Season. Clearly, during the Alice in Chains episode, I expressed my love for Lane. And of course, there's other members here, Mike McCready and John Baker Saunders are the ones that started it when they met in rehab in Minneapolis. Yep. They came up with the idea to do this, right?
Hazelton.
Yeah, Barrett Martin from Screaming Trees, and of course they brought Lane in to sing. And they only did the one-off album, and it's above. It is so good, like, and it's got the Alice in Chains feel because of Lane, but it also does have, because the guitar has a bit of a pro, like it just kind of covers everything, right? Like it's haunting though, like it's a good listen front to back. There's some wrote down a bunch of the tracks. Obviously, River to Seed is the main one, and that is the one that people do know if they even know about this supergroup. But Wake Up, Lifeless Dead, and Long Gone Day with Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees does the other vocals. Oh, just awesome. Sadly, the two M's are still with us, and the two S's are dead, right? Where Saunders and Staley have both OD'd, and Martin and McCready are with us. So, 50%, which kind of sucks. But and there's a 7-minute instrumental there, the November Hotel, that's awesome. Yeah. If you like instrumental songs, some people don't, right?
I expected that when the album came out. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, and I don't mean to steal all the information here, but if anyone else has them, but they originally were the Gacy Bunch, which was John Wayne and the Bradys, right? And they changed it to Mad Season.
I didn't know that.
That's kind of neat, right? But yeah, that's my number 4, Mad Season. It's a shame they didn't do more stuff. And when they met, McCready and Saunders met in rehab, it was during Vitology, I think.
I have a story. I think you're right. No, I think I remember reading that. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was earlier than that.
I have actually a personal story about that, but I'll get into my section because guess what? They might be on my list as well.
Okay. So yeah, I will just cut it at that then, unless the other two guys have anything to add, and we'll let Joe wrap up Mad Season perhaps later.
You were talking about the feeling of it. I found it more gloomy than anything. There was an undertone of like lament. Lament is probably the best word I could use. They were just trying to breathe, and they were having a hard time breathing. That's what I got from that album.
Right.
Especially River to Seed. When that song hit the radio, a lot of people thought it was Alice in Chains.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
We talked about it last episode about depressing songs and Nutshell and stuff like that. This song, to me, even though the lyrics themselves, if you take them at face value and have no idea what they're about, don't seem depressing. The song itself is about Lane seeing his own death and know it's coming. And if you know the album cover, it's an album cover he designed. It's him kissing his girlfriend, who is also a heroin addict.
Right.
And it's just utterly depressing because he's literally just saying, he's kind of reaching out and just, man, I'm dying. This is it. And when I come back, I'll have as he says, a new set of skin and, move on.
And I think you're right. Like, he did lyrics for that song, but he did the lyrics for the entire album. Did he not?
Yeah. Which he didn't do for Alice in Chains.
Which he didn't do for Alice in Chains. And I think we might have mentioned that. Jerry was the main songwriter, right? Or the songwriter.
Which we talked about in the last episode. Go back and watch. It's a fantastic, a very emotional show.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll move on to number 3, and it is another well-known, Seattle connection. Anyway, it is Audioslave, and I know it's just Chris and the Rage guys, but
it's a different sound.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Sound. It's not Rage.
It's a different sound.
Completely different feel.
Completely different feel, right? Like, and Chris's voice is so good.
Absolutely.
I am, very partial to a couple of the big hits. Like, I love I Am a Highway and Like a Stone. I love those 2 tracks, but I like their heavier stuff. And Tom, he's great, right? And it has a bit of a Rage feel, but different. But you can feel at least more Rage than it is Soundgarden, right? It's I don't know. It's I just think it's awesome. Awesome.
Well, you mentioned Tom. He actually plays guitar versus the guitar playing him in Audioslave. He actually plays melodic music way different than the stuff from Rage Against the Machine. And I don't mean any respect by description. But he embraces guitar playing in this, and that's one of the reasons that people hold him higher is because he's multifaceted.
I'm not a musician. I have no talent, but a lot of his stuff, or more of his stuff in this, I find is more bluesy, jazzy sometimes.
Yeah,
really.
Right on. Yeah. Yep. It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, versus the hard and in your face, like you said, like
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So that's my number 3. I don't know if they'll come up again. If you guys consider them, I'm taking a hard right for number 2, away from that style of music, and my number 2 is the Traveling Wilburys.
You're on my list.
I love both those albums, especially Volume 1, the first one.
Me
and
too.
Of course, anyone that doesn't know, it's all the guys. It's Tom and Bob, and first name basis for me, Tom and Bob and George, and Roy and Jeff. Right, Jeff's the one that some people don't know, right? And I love Yellow, so I knew who he was as soon as they came out. Because everyone's like would name the guys and that other guy. I'm like, that other guy, that other guy's awesome. Like
The other guy's amazing.
Right.
Side note, I remember listening to ELO on my sister's 8-track home stereo system.
Right. And ELO
It's amazing.
if you don't know them, they're a hidden treasure, right? Because they have a ton of stuff you're like, oh, I know that. Oh, that's ELO.
Yeah.
So
you immediately know when Jeff Lynne writes a song because he's written, hundreds of songs for other people. I'm like, oh my God, this was written by Jeff Lynne. I can tell. You look at the liner notes, Jeff Lynne.
Exactly.
And a lot of his stuff is very Beatles-esque. Very
totally.
Absolutely.
And I think that the whole collaboration started with Jeff was helping George work on Cloud 9, right, in 87, which was I Got My Mind Stuck on You. And I used to sing, I Got My Dick Stuck in You. So that was a funny little grade 9 way out.
I did hear Bob Dylan sing that.
Yeah,
really, got my dick stuck in you.
But yeah, so they're the ones that came together and started it. And I knew a bunch of this stuff, but I learned a whole shitload when we were researching for this show. The stuff I didn't know is that when they got together, and this was quoted, I don't know if it was from Petty's book or because he's clearly no longer with us, but he was quoted as saying that when Dylan got there, George went up to him and said, hey, I know you're just Bob Dylan and all that, but we're just going to treat you like one of the guys. And Dylan said, well, that's good because I'm going to do the same. I'm super in awe of all of you too, which is cool. And personally, Bob Dylan is my least favorite solo wise of that entire thing. I'm not a huge Bob Dylan guy. I think it's a bit whatever, right? It's an acquired taste that I never really fully acquired. I don't hate him,
I agree.
I don't love him.
I mean, another Minnesota guy, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan. But I have.
Oh, is he a Minnesota guy? I didn't know that. So
yeah, he's from Duluth. He's from Duluth. Yeah.
Robert
He's
Zimmerman.
not from Duluth. He's from the Iron Range.
Yes, and yeah.
Whatever.
Robert Zimmerman. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Robert Zimmerman's my own name. I would say cool. of the bunch of that band, ladies and gentlemen, we have our first guest. Come here, babe. Look at her.
Hey.
Oh my God.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
What's the topic?
Supergroups.
Waynesville.
Bob Dylan. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just talking about the Traveling Wilburys.
The movie is really good.
The movie, the Bob Dylan movie, is amazing.
Is it?
Very good. Yeah, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I should.
And I'm not really a Bob Dylan fan, and I loved it.
Yeah, we were all talking about.
That's
we
right. We were just saying. Yeah, he's an acquired taste, right?
Yeah,
very much so. Let's be honest. He's the most surprising that he was actually in a band with other people.
Yeah.
Is this live right now?
Yes.
I'm out.
Yeah.
He's out.
Gina, no, Gina,
I'm
Gina,
out.
come back.
That was awesome.
Gina, come back. Dawkins awesome, right?
You're gonna cause a divorce, man.
Not as good as Tesla. Tesla's better than Dawkins, though, right?
Tesla's way better than Dawkins.
Okay, Jimmy, sorry. If you are going to compare Tesla to Dawkins,
yes,
I will go with Tesla.
Yeah.
I've seen Dawkins 7 times.
I do love.
How many times have you seen Dawkins? 0.
Well, because we can never seem to make it work out.
Weird. I'm always sick.
It's that funny, eh? They are a super group.
Love you, Gina.
When they announced Traveling Wilburys, I was shocked that literally Bob Dylan was in a band with other famous people. Like Bob Dylan. So,
yeah, it's weird, right? And those guys saw, like, I don't know how, I think based on what I read, they weren't super close with Roy, but they knew him, but they saw him and they're like, oh, he's got to be with us.
Yeah.
Because his voice was really on point then. And of course, he suddenly died. And then they had him in the End of Line video, which was their second video, with his picture and the guitar and the rocking chair, right? So that's kind of emotional too. And End of the Line is much like Back in the Saddle, Long Cool Woman. You come to my backyard, you're going to hear possibly Handle It With Care, possibly Tweeter and the Monkey Man, but most likely End of the Line is going to be on a playlist.
But it's all right.
Possibly.
It's safe, right? Everybody knows it. It's safe around the fire. You're not going to piss anybody off because you played Dawkins, even though you want to. You played End of the Line, right?
Yeah. Not because you have to. No.
What's kind of cool about that pick is, I mean, it was there. It was like number 9 on my list. It wasn't locked in. But
it was on my list too, yeah.
Bob Dylan, like you said, he came in and he didn't know what to do. He froze and didn't know how to act. And what do I do now? What do I do now? And they're like, just fucking sing. And the other part of it is Roy Orbison was.
I don't sing, I talk.
Roy Orbison was so sick and he was so blind. He couldn't even see the like the call sheets and the lyric stuff. So Tom Petty had to whisper it in his ear. So he had a harmony to go. Yeah. And they spent so much time just loving on each other that the recording process went so fucking smoothly that they all just adored each other. And they're like, no, you sing this part. No, you sing this part. No, it was written for you. No, you sing this part. Yeah, I believe it was a love fest.
And perfect segue off of that. So I didn't know this. Really cool. The first session they got together, all of them in the same room, was at Dave Stewart's house from the Eurythmics, and they sat in his kitchen in a circle and all played, and then they went to another room to record the actual vocals or their parts, but it was just, they just gelled immediately, right? And I'm like, oh, that's awesome, right? Yeah, and my last thing I'll say, minus, I don't have a memory other than 88. It's such, when I listened to Volume 1, especially, such high school for me.
It's high school for me too, yeah.
Yeah, well, for all of us, right? So it brings back those memories. But Tweeter and the Monkey Man, I know Chris is a cover guy. Tweeter and the Monkey Man was covered by a Canadian band from Kingston. I used to say they were the second best band from Kingston next to the Tragically Hip, and now they're probably third because the Glorious Sons are also from Kingston. So
I like
the Headstones better? Yeah, so the Headstones, I don't know if you guys have ever heard them. The singer is Hugh Dillon, who is the bald cop from Yellowstone and Mayor of Kingston. Yeah, you know who he is? Okay. Yeah, so they do.
He's an hardcore logo too, right?
He's an hardcore logo, right? They do a much heavier version of Tweeter and the Monkey Man, and
they do a really good version.
Yeah, it's really good. I love the Wilburys, but the Headstone one's almost better.
What is that? I want to write it down. What is that?
Tweeter and the Monkey Man by the Headstones. And if you don't know the Traveling Wilburys, you should. You'll get hooked on the Headstone one. A standalone.
I think you'll dig the. I think
but back to back, you'll see the difference. It's cool.
Yeah, I think Jimmy, you'll dig the Headstones version. The drums are in that song is really well done. I think personally.
Yeah,
I got it locked in.
Okay, I'll move along to my number one, just to speed up time here because I'm long-winded. Number one was an easy pick for me. It might not sit well with supergroups, but it totally is a supergroup. But because they had such a substantial catalog or following, people sometimes forget. And like we've talked about before, pre-production or throughout the week or whatever, about Zeppelin and Journey and all these other bands that are, technically supergroups. But for number one for me is Bad Company. Easy, bar none, my favorite supergroup. I love Bad Company. I know I talked about Lane being in my top 5. or at least 10 favorite vocals. Chris Cornell's in there. Paul Rogers is in that top 10 as well. I think he's phenomenal. I can listen to 10
He's
from
worked with
6.
everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just silky smooth. I can listen to 10 from 6. And for anyone that doesn't know, that's 10 songs from 6 albums. It's a compilation, right? But even their debut, the title, the Bad Company with the My Bad Company with the song Bad Company. Is there another band that does that?
Skid Row? No.
No, it's another band that has an album that's named after the band and has the song on the album that's named after it. You know, I don't know. Good question. Good trivia question. But anyway, that album, that debut album front to back is great, but 10 from 6 is such a solid compilation. I can name all the songs. I'm not going to waste time doing that. So good. And I even liked Bad Company enough that when Paul left and Steve Howe came in to sing, those 2 albums in the 90s are
smoke without a fire.
Yeah, 90 and 92, like Holy Water and Here Comes Trouble. Oh, so good. And of course, Steve Howe came over after doing an album with Nugent, right? But yeah, I thought the band actually was tighter with Steve Howe than it was with Paul. But the vocals, obviously, with Paul were better. But Steve Howe's okay. But yeah, I love Bad Company.
I just want to comment on your pick there, because this all started. We all know, but you guys, the listeners, don't know. This all started because, in a roundabout way, Joe and I were doing this fun thing on Facebook.
Yes.
Dink messaged us and said, "Hey, we do this trivia thing, and let's all do this trivia." And that's how we all met. There was this Zoom trivia thing, and we're like, we're having so much fun. Let's fucking do a podcast. JustRankedPod.com. But one of the things that Joe and I did was this fun little competition, and Supergroups was one of them. And Dink messaged me directly and said, "Hey, fucking Bad Company is like the ultimate supergroup, and we need to talk about it." And we spent probably, I don't know, a half hour going back and forth about Bad Company. So yeah, that's a cool new memory that I have.
Yeah, and what was it that you guys had posted? Just your favorite supergroup or a song from a supergroup? And I think I commented, we had to, your thing you guys were doing, you had to pick one or the other, right? So one of you two won, right? And I didn't know, they were blind, so nobody knew. But I was like, I'll pick this one. But if I had to pick, it would be a Bad Company song. Yes.
That's what it was. That was the conversation,
Yeah. So yeah, you knew this was coming then because we don't also for the listeners.
Knew.
We probably told listeners at some point during these shows, but we go into these blind. We don't tell each other the picks, even though we have a nonstop group chat. It would be pointless to tell each other what we're saying. And I don't want to know. I like the surprise of even if we have samesies, I'd like to know what's I don't want to know what's coming from you guys. So
as part of the spontaneity.
Everything that you guys hear from us is 100% spontaneous. The only thing we talk about is order of things. That's all our pre-production and what we can do and to improve on the show. There's no, this is what I'm going to say, and these are my picks. No, so everything
that would be so scripted and so stupid, right? Like
I wouldn't be able to follow a script. I'm just like that.
You know
I can't even follow my own notes.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. Oh, I'm all over the board. All over the board. Yeah.
You notebook.
After every show, I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to say like 6 things. And they're like, you said it. No.
You said it.
I'm sorry, I hijacked you, and I apologize.
And at least it was Bad Company
really relevant thing.
Sometimes he needs to be hijacked. Don't worry. He needs
What's that?
Sometimes he needs to be hijacked. You're fine.
Oh, yeah, I need a good hijacking.
Word on the street.
He needs a good HJ, just like everybody else.
I'll take an HJ. Jimmy's not my first choice for HJs, but I'll take one.
Right. Billy Joel is your number one.
Billy Joel is not my first BJ choice either.
The original BJ.
Oh, fuck. I got to remember that. I got a Billy Joel.
HJ, it's Howard Jones for sure.
Right. It's all right. It's another hit and run.
Yeah.
Ding.
Gets another reference in. Beautiful. Okay, so I have two very quick, if I can do them quick, honorable mentions. Of course, there's other ones that you guys are going to say, and I had a larger list, but I have a couple of rare ones, or rare to some people. But Army of Anyone, again, we're only a one album, a one-off, and that's Filter Singer, the DeLeo brothers from STP, Roy Lazier from David Lee Roth, and he's the current Korn drummer, right? That album's wicked. Certainly didn't get the credit that it should have. Goodbye was the big track off that, but didn't get a lot of hype. But if you go back and listen to it now, it holds up. And the other one, maybe Jimmy has this based on his love for Sean Kinney, but Spies for Darwin, again, did not get the credit it should have. It's him and Mike Inez and Vinny, the singer from Sponge, and Chris DeGarmo from Queensryche. Wicked combination, right? I would have never thought. But again, it is really cool. It's like really good Kinney too, right? Like he was majorly involved in that because the drums are wicked.
They're both on here.
Nice. But yeah, and of course the cool thing, because I was like, Spies for Darwin, that's a weird band name. So when I looked it up, because I missed this album, this was definitely found. The Army of Anyone I knew, I'd heard it when it was out, and had forgotten about it. So that was a nice refresher. Spies for Darwin, I totally missed. So I don't know what it is with me missing stuff that Sean Kinney's been in, but I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. Why didn't they do more stuff? Obviously, those guys went back and did stuff with Alice in Chains and still are. But yeah, so good. But yeah, the title of the band, I guess when they were in the studio screwing around, there was a guy, and Jimmy, maybe you know this, there was a guy that was loitering around the studio, and he said, he clearly had some mental issues. He said he was security or whatever. And then and so they all laughed or whatever. And at one point he left his stuff there and asked them to watch his stuff because he was looking out for them these other times. And then I think it was Kinney that said, I guess now we're Spies for Darwin. I don't know if the guy's name was actually Darwin or they were calling him Darwin. Yeah. But anyway, I
don't know that story. Yeah.
Homeless guy, right? So I guess now we're Spies for Darwin, and that kind of stuck and became the band name. But yeah, really good album. Both of those honorable mentions are a really good album. I would suggest to anyone that hasn't heard them, if you like anything from any of the members of those bands, because there's any supergroup, there's a combination of everything, right? And then they come together and form their own thing. But yeah, really good stuff.
I'm really glad you mentioned Ray Luzier, because Ray Luzier is one of my current drumming idols. So you may or may not hear about him coming up.
Nice.
So I guess we're passing this on to Chris, the president.
Yes,
the president.
President.
Yeah, let's not let that get up.
So whatever. My number 4 is Asia, specifically the first 2 albums by Asia. Which I think is a little funny because I'm not a big Yes fan. I like a couple of their songs. I'm not a big Emerson, Lake and Palmer fan, but I like a couple of their songs. But man, those first 2, for me, cassette tapes of Asia, I fucking wore those out. I would go to bed listening to them. I would wake up listening to them. I would listen to it. Yeah, the keyboard, the drums. Yeah. Oh my God. I just the vocals. I just loved. I don't know what it was. I had a real obsession with Asia for a while. Yeah. What's that?
The album covers.
Yeah. Right? Oh no, even they were fucking unreal. So the water dragon on the wall. Yeah. They had unreal posters. I remember buying 2 or 3 of them, having them on my wall at different times. And also being a bit of I think I remember being a bit secretive about being an Asia fan because it wasn't really popular to be an Asia fan at the time. Got shit on, especially where I was, right? Where I grew up, it was all CCR and hard rock. What's that?
You have an Asia poster, the 40-year-old version. You have an Asia
40-year-old version.
Yeah. Asia's but I can relate with that, man. I fucking love them. You have no idea how much I listen to them.
So
Yeah.
I got those albums for Jenny, and she loves them. Yeah,
You're
I
on my
love
list.
Yeah. So
Yeah, good pull.
way
Good pull.
more than like kind of out of what I would usually listen to for sure. Especially when you look at the next couple of bands that are on here, nowhere near the same genre or style. But yeah, but Asia was really big for me at that point, or when I was younger.
Yeah, me too.
So
in the heat of
my
the
number,
moment, you mean?
Yeah, when it
yes,
was
in
a
the
huge
heat of the
moment.
moment, which was one of my favorite songs by them for sure. I
Oh,
love that.
so
Don't
good.
cry,
Nice song.
open your eyes. Just I don't know. I love them so much.
And being a big
My number,
Yes fan, like I am now, but I was back then too. I was considered Asia like the pop version of Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
The
I
big
guess it's kind of
generator
like-
of yes.
The way I really loved Depeche Mode, but not like I liked a couple of New Order songs. I liked a couple other, but like I didn't like anything else really in the genre. But anyways, like I was saying, my number 3 is going to be A Perfect Circle.
No,
Um,
I figured it was coming.
right? Like they're like Tool light, I guess you'd put it.
Yeah.
Like
Artsy Tool, as Jimmy
Yeah,
said.
Arctic Tool, yeah.
right? Like Tool, like a little Tool smoking weed, like Tool a little bit mellower.
Bourgeois
sometimes.
Tool.
Bourgeois Tool, and a little bit from like the last episode where I was talking about that when I saw that Lollapalooza with Tool and Fishbone.
Yeah.
One of the guys from Perfect Circle was a guitar tech for Fishbone and met Maynard when they were like opening together, and they on that tour, and that's how they started. One of the reasons they started Perfect Circle
really?
was yeah.
Howardell. I think his name's
What's that?
Tom Howardell.
Billy. I wrote
Billy?
down Billy.
Okay,
Yeah.
I said Billy last with Billy Ehas.
Billy Howardell, guitar tech with Fishbone.
Howardell.
93. Yeah. Yeah.
Good old
Well, I
Billy
had
Jack.
Billy right on that episode, just the wrong.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Billy!
But
Billy's in
again,
school, man.
I'm not sure they would have been in my top 4 until when we said we're going to do this, and I went back and started listening to more than just their first album.
Yeah.
And realized how much of their stuff I really liked, and even some of their slower, softer stuff, like Down by the River, I think is the one song.
Yeah.
How much I really liked some of their stuff, and I just added it to like a favorites list that I had on Spotify, and I'm listening to them more again. So the way
Yeah,
I did
I
the
listened to
Supergroups, I selected a bunch of Supergroups, and then when I listened to their music, I'm like, by how many songs I liked of theirs or could remember like them having an impact on me,
Yeah.
that's how they went on the list, right? So
Yep.
the more
Yeah.
songs I liked, the higher up on the list they went,
And that's how it
So-
should be done. Yeah.
right? My number 2 then, which surprised the hell out of me, is Cream. Because
Wow.
I forgot
There we
One
go.
album.
how
Yeah.
many songs of theirs I grew up listening to. White Room, Sunshine of Your Love, Crossroads, the Tales of Brave Ulysses. I forgot about that one and then reheard it, and my God, that song is amazing.
Ginger
Right.
Baker's amazing in that that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like,
Yeah.
it surprised me how much I liked them. I
Yeah.
forgot how much I liked them. Wouldn't
It's
even been on my
funny
top 5.
It's funny that you talk about Cream. Is that Eric Clapton has been in so many of these different supergroups,
Right.
and just the impact.
And I'm not a
I'm
huge
not a-
Clapton guy. I like
I was
Clapton.
just
I
gonna say.
respect him.
I'm not a Clapton fan. I mean, I guess in any value, but I mean, you got to respect the shit out of this guy. Derek and the Dominoes, the Yardbirds, Cream, Eric Clapton by himself. I'm probably forgetting something here, but just those 4 bands alone.
Right.
I don't listen to a lot of Eric Clapton, but when I realized I listened to a lot of his bands.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And you have to have respect for somebody like him, even if you
Yeah.
don't listen to his music. That's the way I feel, right? Like,
And he's a complete douche, I've heard, but you still got to respect his musical
according to Cheryl Crow.
Yeah, but I'm not judging people. Like if I judge people on douchebaggery,
Oh, yeah, I was
there's
gonna say.
a lot of fucking music I wouldn't
All
listen
the
to, right?
musicians.
Yeah, it does cut out a lot of music for sure.
Right? A lot of music, a lot of movies, a lot of artists, a lot of books,
Right.
a lot of everything, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's got to
know?
be a line that's drawn where, like, fuck it. Michael Jackson liked to look at buttholes, but I fucking love Michael Jackson. So
a lot of artists are eccentric and do weird shit. That's why they're artists, and it doesn't mean I don't love their art, but I would dislike them probably a lot as a person if I met them or hung out with them.
Yeah.
We're not a very timely podcast. So we're not talking about things that happened yesterday. But if you're going to say Yee, if you're a big fan of Yee, at what point is this Nazism take over your love for Yee?
Well, that's it, right? Like,
I don't. Yeah,
there is a line.
There's a couple of songs of his that I like, and would I stop listening to them if they come on the radio?
mean,
Probably not. But I don't have him on my playlist. But it's not because of the Nazis. I'm not a big fan.
Are there a lot of Gary Glitter fans out there left?
Oh my God! In a future episode, we may or may not be talking about Gary Glitter.
Right.
I didn't even think of that. That's a name I didn't think was going to come up tonight. Holy fuck!
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, like or shit. Who else was I just thinking?
Pete Townsend.
Again, to be very timely too. Just yesterday, for the last year, the Prince Estate and Netflix have been fighting because Netflix.
I saw that.
I saw that too. I saw that as well.
Produced and finished 9-hour documentary about Prince. And it was everything, including all the awards. And Prince was like, this is not coming out.
Yep.
And they fought for a year, and finally they announced yesterday that now the Prince Estate is going to work with Netflix to do their own documentary. So yeah, you're right. If you did all the skeletons in everyone's closets, there'd be very few people besides Karen Carpenter you could like.
I was going to slide in with two things. Oasis is who was like I have a line. I don't like Oasis. I don't mind a couple of their songs, but I do not listen to them at all because of the way they were towards INXS. It's just a personal thing. I think they're
sure, that makes sense.
And secondly, Joe, are you a big Cream fan or is it just Creamy? Go back and watch.
I always used to say it's probably a bad state.
He missed it.
I know. I was going to say something, and then
I was like, I know Chris is going to go on to the next group, and I got to get something in about Cream. Oh, shit.
I always just say back in the day, why couldn't him be on the plane instead of Stevie Ray Vaughan?
Right. Helicopter, yeah.
Because he was supposed to be on the same helicopter, so. He's not the greatest guy in the world, yeah, but 100%. You can not 1,000%.
Not respect his talent.
I'll say
not 1,000%.
Not for the
not
1,000%.
100%. It's if you bring people's personal lives and beliefs into art, it's hard to like anything. I mean, really,
it really is.
With Eric Clapton, he's got this fucking excuse that drives me up a wall and makes me not like him even more. He's like, I was so high and drunk that I don't remember those albums, so fuck it. It didn't happen.
Yeah,
fuck off.
Right.
We all in the real world, we have to deal with that. Fuck you, Eric.
Fuck you, Eric.
Chris, President.
All right.
President.
In the immortal worlds of Don Fagan, fuck off.
Right.
Eric Clapton.
Yeah. Go fuck yourself, Eric.
A little early on that, but all right. All right. My number one is arguably, so I know that they weren't a super band when the album was released, but my love of the 90s music and my love of the two bands that mainly make up this supergroup, it's Temple of the Dog. So it was released technically 4 months before Pearl Jam's 10 was released.
Yeah,
so they weren't a supergroup till after, really.
Right.
And honestly, I didn't discover them till well after Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I think the reason when I listen to the album, maybe there's one song I dislike. Other than that, I listen to the entire album. It's one of those albums I can listen to the entire album, start to finish. Right.
It was going to be my honorable mention, Chris. It was them or Mad Season for number 4. And I was going to bump one of them down, but then I thought I would honor those other two smaller bands, and I
So
knew
they
some
weren't
bands
on my
just
list.
Temple
That's
of
what
Dog.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they weren't on my list. And then when I listened to the album, I'm like, fuck, I can listen to every one of these songs. I like every one of these songs so much.
Yeah.
And I remember discovering the album, remember where I was again. Same one. It's one of those where I remember where I was. I remember where I was when I heard it. And I'm like, who the fuck is this? Right? Like,
Right.
and then when Eddie does the guest vocals too with Chris, I'm just like, again, being a 90s fan, and you know I'm a big Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Nirvana fan. Like, I love all of those bands. So for me, once I started listening to the album again, I'm like, yep, it's them. I mean,
Yeah,
and you can argue whether they are or aren't, but they are for me.
They are.
They
Yeah.
are. It
Yeah,
is.
they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that album kind of encompasses that entire scene because I think I mentioned before, Jimmy and I, for the most part, went through the Minneapolis music scene on the hard rock side, so it wasn't the R&B side. But
Yep.
it was cutthroat. No one was ever out for anybody. In Seattle was the opposite. They're like, ooh, if so-and-so makes it, it makes a better chance that I'll make it. So they're all best of friends. They all got along. They all helped each other out. And then obviously Andrew Wood dies, and this comes about through the whole thing. And they just kind of throw everything out and just kind of come together to do this album that they, Chris Cornell wanted to do. And it's a great metaphor for that entire scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they
And
were
it
roommates,
also-
roommates, right?
It got me to actually go back and buy the Mother Love Bone. Well, again, cassette.
It did for me when I got Temple of Dog back in the day. I went and got Mother Love Bone as well.
Yeah, it made me discover Mother Love Bone because I had no idea who they were. And then when I read what Temple of the Dog was about and how they got together, I'm like, well, I got to go find out about this band. And back then, you didn't have the internet to go search it. You had to go buy the album.
Yeah.
Right.
And you had to read it in a magazine or some sort of music pamphlet.
And I'm sure that's where I got it from, one of my subscriptions from one of those rock magazines that I can't remember.
Good times, though, right? You read that thing front to back because that was the only way. You didn't
and then
have
put out
everything at your
photos and stuck them in my locker at school or put them on my wall at home. Like,
yeah. Well, the two bands that benefited the most out of that whole scene were Mother Love Bone and Mudhoney.
And Mudhoney,
they were all kind of superseding a lot of Pearl Jam as part of that. And, they benefited clearly the most out of that. And there was a big revival with the Mother Love Bone and Andrew Wood. And,
right.
And then, you go back to last episode, Alice in Chains. There were a lot of vocals done on SAP, where it was Alice Mudhoney. Or Alice, Jesus Christ. Alice Mudgarden. Sorry.
It was Jesus Christ. I don't remember him getting credit for that.
Wow.
He's a great man. Alice Mudgarden. It was a bunch of
yeah. That's the name I forgot about. Jesus.
Yeah.
So my honorable mention, and I'm sorry if I'm stealing any thunder because I see your album in the background there, Jimmy, but is Power Station. They were really big.
Yeah, they were close.
I was a big Duran Duran guy, and not necessarily a Robert Plant guy, but one of my sisters was big into Robert Plant.
Palmer.
Robert Palmer.
Sorry. Yes, sorry. Palmer. Robert Palmer.
You know what? Jink's sending us a message.
You guys fucked this up.
And I want to say I did like the Traveling Wilburys, but I just didn't buy their albums. I didn't listen to them that much, but I do have respect, obviously, because of the group of guys that they were.
Yeah, no, they just said heavy with me, but I'm with you on the Power Station. I've said it before. My sister is next to Depeche Mode is a diehard Duran Duran. She's probably seen them 10 or 15 times, and so she was all about Power Station and Arcadia, like the split and the combos, right?
Oh, if we do Duran Duran, I'm a big Duran Duran guy. I love
Duran Duran. Put it on the list. I'll do Duran Duran for sure.
I'll do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but yeah, Power Station was great, right? It was a cool combo, and Robert Palmer kind of made it cool, right?
He made it really fucking cool and kind of sexy in a weird way.
Yeah. And there's, again, I'm gonna say their sound was different from what like usually Duran Duran would be, so it was a little bit And I love the I can't remember his name right now. One of the Taylor Bros, the guitar player. I love the way he played guitar.
Andy?
I don't know. There's just something.
Andy Taylor, yeah.
Yes, Andy
Andy.
Taylor. Yeah.
Yep.
And Andy was the
I don't-
problem in
Again,
Rand. He
not
couldn't get along
no-
with the rest of the guys, right? Like,
Right. I'm not a big. Again, I'm not a musician, and I don't have a lot of talent. But I just love the way. I loved his sound.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
His solo stuff with like "Take It Easy," not bad, right? Not bad at
Yeah.
all.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I had that solo.
Yeah. So that's my list. And I've forgotten who's next.
I am next.
Joe.
Me.
Joe. Sorry, Joe. Joe's up.
All right. So my
Good
list
list,
is a little bit different. So I know we had like not a set of rules, but there's a set of guidelines of what a
Guidelines.
supergroup was. I
The
was
dink rule. It's the dink rule.
the dink rule, yes. But there's, if you look at the terms supergroups, even what we're talking about for supergroups, it's endless. Led Zeppelin's technically a supergroup, which I don't consider. They're a band.
Yeah,
Bad
I'm with you.
Company.
I'm with you.
I consider Bad Company their own thing. You know, that's my personal thing.
Yeah,
But I disregarded duos because duos are technically supergroups if you have two different people come in.
Yeah.
So, but you have like Traveling Wilburys, like we talked before, Blind Faith, Cream, again, two Eric Clapton bands. Asia, of course, which was mentioned before. But so I just want the bands, the supergroups that I listen to the most. They may not be the best in your mind. They're not going to be like Cream.
Probably
Legendary.
not.
These are
Probably
going to be
not.
the bands I listen to the most, and some of you be like, "What the fuck?" And some of you are like, "I'll give them a pass." My first one, my number 4 supergroup is Them Crooked Vultures.
oh yeah.
Nice.
For those who don't know, is Dave Grohl, John Paul Jones, and Josh Homme. Wow! Look at
Wow,
that.
even with Dave.
Impressive.
From Kids of Stone Age. Real quick, just researching this whole thing. I'm doing a lot of research most of the time, but I want to get some little facts going here. Did you realize between October 26, 2002 and March 1st, 2003, Dave Grohl was the #1 spot for the modern rock charts for Billboard for 17 of 18 consecutive weeks of 3 different bands, and that was the Foo Fighters and Nirvana and Queens of the Stone Age. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I love that album. It's a very different album. You can hear the influence of John Paul Jones and Josh Homme for the most part on the music, which is really cool because you get that really grungy Queens of the Stone Age type of dirty guitar, but it's also got that 60s vibe of late 60s, early 70s somehow. I don't know how they do it. That album is perplexing to me because they get these really simplistic, complex sounds going with 3 guys. It's amazing. I remember when, yeah, I mean, it's that's my number 4. Again, I don't think there's another band that sounds like them. And again, just a one-off, like a lot of supergroups, one album and done.
Yeah.
They did it.
Right.
You know, no one got hurt. Number 3, we brought up last.
No one got hurt. No one got
Hold on.
hurt.
John Paul Jones said, "I've never had to ever take a back seat to 2 other musicians in my life and love it."
And do what?
That's
You know?
really.
Which is surprising. He never thought he took a back seat to Jimmy and Robert.
What? It's not like they treated him like that.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote most of the music.
Yeah.
Well, but with them
Well,
Crooked Vultures, he got to come in and plug in and go, "Okay, what are we doing? ACD,
Yep.
okay, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom." And he got to play and he got to throw some John Paul Jones cool shit on that.
Right. And
And I
that's probably
remember-
where you're going with it, Joe, with how they had that sound. It was probably
Yeah.
him. Right.
And like I said, Josh Homme, I'm not a big Queens fan, but I do like a lot of their stuff, and they just got a unique sound to them. And that's obviously a lot of their sound. Them Crooked Vultures is Queen's sound. That's from Josh Homme. But again, I think Dave's a very, very good drummer. But that other part of that sound is coming from the John Paul Jones influence, and it's just him inputting. It's so cool. I love that album. I play it too often. It's like it's. I wish there was another album, but maybe not because the album is so good on its own.
It was good enough to hold its own in history, in my mind.
I'm not going to get too.
It was number
top 10
2 on this list.
They didn't make my top 4, but they would make my top 10.
Yeah, they're around the 10-15 mark for me.
Yeah, now I would admit my list is recency biased. So again, there's there's no Bad Company or anything else like that, and there's no Asia. Asia was on my list. I took them off today. That was the other band we were talking about earlier pre-show. I took off the last.
Chris surprised me with Asia. I
Asia-
figured it was on your list, Joe, with your yes.
The only reason it was on my list was because I listened to them so much. I got into them big when I was younger for some reason, and I don't even know why, but I couldn't discount it. They popped in my head right away when
Supergroups
was brought up. Right
when this topic came up a few weeks ago, Asia was one of the first bands I thought of. Like, oh, Asia for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first 2 albums are amazing, but the first album I played through a bazillion times. Plus, hearing my brother play it, and I got through him.
Yep.
That was a foregone conclusion. But today, I was really like, okay, what bands do I listen to on a yearly basis, on a consistent basis? Is what my list came up to.
Monthly or
Asia.
weekly.
Around Asia.
But then my number 3 pick, I have a really cool story, so I won't get too much about the pick itself because I want to get into my buddy's story about them. But my number 3 is Mad Season. Again, we talked about last episode with Alice in Chains, and I think before when Dink was talking, River Deceit, I think is the most heartbreaking song ever. I get emotional singing. Talking about, because it's literally about Lance Staley seeing his death, about his addiction. He knows he's going to die, and almost embracing it in some ways. But instead of focusing that, so I used to be the director of IT for a company, an advertising company. Teddy was a coworker and a friend of mine that passed away in 2019, but he was a producer there, and he told me about the story. He's like, Joe, so years ago when I was in rehab, I was rehab with what's his name, John Baker Saunders, the bass player from the Rock. And here in Minnesota, he's like, so we were in treatment together, and he goes, I owned a small painting company. We go when we paint houses, right? We go outside and paint outside people's houses, and just to keep people sober and stuff like that. And he goes, hey, do you mind if my friend Mike tags along? He's
Mike McCready.
He just joined. He just started coming to rehab. He's like, yeah, Mike can come with. And so they started. Mike would work up, but Mike didn't want to be paid. And he's like, well, Mike's kind of a cool guy. And then one day they're in Northeast Minneapolis, which is not a great spot sometimes. And
the warehouse district, gotta love it.
Saunders these kids cut him off, or these young kids cut him off, started throwing rocks at his car, and he yelled at him. He's like, whatever. He told him off or something like that. And so they went off and did their painting job, and all of a sudden they smelled smoke and went out there, and Saunders' car was on fire. He lost everything. His one bass, all of his possessions were in the car. And my buddy, Teddy goes, it's okay. He tells me, this Mike guy goes, it's okay. I got you. I'll get your car and we'll get you a new bass and stuff. And he just walked away and started going painting again. He goes, who is this Mike guy who's been hanging out with us the last couple weeks? He goes, you don't know who Mike is? It's Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. And so he's been hanging out with Mike McCready, who's the nicest guy in the world, apparently. So, yeah, Mad Season was a band that was created in a Minnesota rehab.
Hazelton.
I won't get into another story that my buddy Teddy has about Mike McCready. He still has his porno VHS he never returned, I guess. But I thought it was a great story because the band was formed with great intentions to keep Saunders and Lane Staley sober. Obviously, Mike McCready too. Mike McCready kind of beat his drug addiction, where the other two unfortunately did not, and ultimately. But to this day, even thinking about that song "River Deceit," which is the gem on that album. The entire album's really good, but "River Deceit" and "Wake Up" and "Lifeless Dead" and "X-Ray of Mind's" great too. But just that album is heartbreaking, and I don't want to go back down that road, which we did last episode. But Mad Season, my number 3. I always thought, whenever I think of Mad Season, I think of my buddy Teddy, who passed away. His great story of he had no idea who Mike McCready was for the 3 weeks.
That's fucking awesome.
That's
awesome,
a great story. Like, really cool.
Thank you for him. Number 2, some people won't know who this band is, but it's made up of Billy Sheehan from Mr. Big and Mike Kilgore from the Dream Theater, and about 75 other bands. And I think one of the most unheralded guitarists and singers in the history of rock, and that's Richie Kotzen. The Winery Dogs. I
Oh.
love this band. They're just highlights from their first albums: Elevate, Desire, We Are One, I Am No Angel. From their second album, Oblivion, Captain Love, The Bridge. Xanadu from their third album, along with Red Wine, The Breakthrough. They did covers of Moon Age Daydream by Bowie, and Gary Wright's Love Is Alive, which is amazing on their EP.
Oh, wow.
We so check out the Winery Dogs. They got 3 full albums and then another EP. My wife and I saw them at First Avenue, Minneapolis, and I've seen a million bands live. Richie Kotzen is, I will say, if not the best, the second best vocalist I've ever seen live. The guy was
Really
amazing.
Yeah.
And my wife, she loves my wife loves Mr. Big, and she liked the Winery Dogs. She likes them and she listens to them. But when we were sitting there front row at First Avenue and seeing Richie Kotzen carrying himself, he's kind of not a very big guy. He's kind of a short guy too. He's the only other person I've ever seen live carrying himself like Prince. He just was not cocky, but very assured, felt very confident, he knew what he has. And dude, his voice live was even better than on the record.
Really?
Amazing.
wow.
And I will say a very, very, very underrated guitarist.
A little
Sorry.
And he's playing.
Joe,
with
did you
Smith
see
now,
the
right?
Winery Dogs? They're the Winery Dogs?
Winery Dogs.
Winery
Yes.
Dogs.
Never heard
a little note on Richie Kotzen, the singer guitar player, is he was courted by Soundgarden to replace Chris Cornell within the last 6 months.
Yeah,
I'm not stepping into those shoes. So
He
if
turned him
you
down.
ever get the chance to listen to anything Richie Kotzen, you're going to hear Chris Cornell, but with probably a little more power, believe it or not.
Which is funny because years ago after Chris died, I'm like, there's only one person could take his place and be Richie Kotzen. And Richie Kotzen's he's one of those guys, he's very successful in South America and parts of Asia and Europe. I mean, he lives very well. He notoriously was the second guitarist, and he replaced CeCe DeVille in Poison back in the day.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Tongue.
He was in Poison.
Until he apparently screwed, was it Ricky Rocket or
Ricky Rocket's wife, yeah.
wife? And then they kicked him out of the bus in the middle of nowhere, and he was out of the bag.
It was like Nebraska.
Well,
yeah.
fair enough. Like, honestly.
Yeah, I guess, but those guys probably all fucked everybody. So,
But yeah, if you have a chance, if you don't even listen to the Winery Dogs, which I highly check out Richie Kotzen, man. The guy's got an amazing voice, and every song you hear, that's him on guitar. He's amazing.
Right. And Mike Portnoy,
LA
the
radio
drummer, is fucking
Portnoy.
who's now back with Dream Theater.
right.
Yep. My favorite Dream Theater drummer. Yep. Along, he's on the other 17 other bands. He's on another band with he was in another
Liquid
band.
Tension.
Yeah, Liquid Tension, which is Dream Theater without a singer.
Oh, you scroll through Facebook Reels, and sooner or later you're gonna get a Portnoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at his former bands, it's like seriously like 27 bands. It's amazing.
Right.
My number one is probably surprising. It's not as legendary as Cream or as Blind Faith or as Asia. My number one supergroup is Chickenfoot.
Oh wow!
I knew that was going to happen.
I've told you before, my love for Sammy Hagar's voice is bigger now the older I get. I don't know why. I wasn't the biggest Sammy Hagar fan when I was younger. But if you don't know, it's Sammy Hagar and Frank Lansky from Van Halen. It's Chad Smith from Red Hot Chili Peppers. And it's Joe fucking Satriani.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is probably underneath Prince for me. This my second favorite guitarist. And just because he doesn't play for flash, he plays for melody, and that's a hard thing to do, I think.
Some of my favorite instrumental songs are Joe Satriani sonons, and he was one of my Columbia House purchases. For sure, he was one of my Columbia House purchases.
Well, that's the nice thing about Chickenfoot too, because there's a lot of songs like "Sexy Little Thing" and "Ooh Yeah" and "Down the Drain" that sound like Satriani songs, only with vocals.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, he's no Coldplay, but you know.
No Coldplay.
I believe.
Well, ironically, when you said that, you remember that when Joe Satriani sued Coldplay, right?
Yes.
And it was settled out of court, but no one knows really how it happened. I'll tell you what happened.
Undisclosed amount, and he now owns the rights to
that song.
Does he?
Basically,
Also, too,
Yeah.
you gotta commend a band who titles their second album 3. Why? Who the hell knows? It's a fucking joke. Who gives a shit?
They
unlike,
don't take themselves too seriously.
unlike Stone Temple Pilots' fourth
Right,
album.
I was just
called,
gonna say that.
Four.
Of course.
So they're fourth. They're on 4, which is their fourth album.
Or what was? I don't even know. I get a count through the album. What was Van Halen's 3? What album was that? Was that like?
Yeah, that's true. Fuck.
I can't count that.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Fuck.
My honorable mentions. One was Sincere. The other one's like, this would have been kind of cool. Is Devil City Angels. Again, very little known band. If you're watching the video, that's the set list right there from St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Tracy Guns.
Really?
Tracy Guns from LA Guns, Eric Brittingham from Cinderella, Ricky Rocket from Poison, and Brandon Gibbs, who's been in a bunch of LA bands. But
What's the name of that band?
Devil City Angels.
Yeah, I don't know that. I'm gonna have to check that.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Their first album, dude, if it was released in the late 80s, early 90s, would have been giant because it's just vocal melody after vocal melody. It's just
It's behind its times.
radio rock
Ahead of
album.
its times. It's behind its times.
It's a radio rock album.
Joe.
Yeah.
Joe actually turned me on to them. I hadn't heard of them. I know, obviously Tracy Guns is one of his biggest influences. And I think I called you or texted you and you were on your way to the show. I'm like, holy fuck, who's this? I did a dive.
Yeah, that should be right up your alley, right? Like,
It's cool because they could have gone. I remember talking to I was talking to Ricky Rocket. So when we went there, they were playing at this strip bar. It was not a strip bar. It was a bar in a strip mall. And
cocaine and hookers.
all right, I was at the strip bar eating from the buffet.
St. Cloud, Minnesota is not a huge. It's a college town. It's not a giant city, but they were playing just outside of St. Cloud, in the middle of nowhere, and it's a strip mall in a bar. I forget the name of the bar.
Sock Rapids, Sock Center, one of the two.
Something like that. I don't remember. Anyhow, so we walk in there because we had VIP tickets, right? And it was just. We walk in, there's like the 8 guys who are the regulars at the bar, and like the band members sitting at the bar. I see some guy with like one of those like old timey freaking flat hats on his head, and he's got glasses on. I sit down at the bar. He's like, "Hey, so you here for the show?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I look again. It's Ricky Rocket. What the fuck? And there's right up there on the stage is Tracy Guns just warming up, and there's Eric Brittingham and Brandon Gibbs. So I brought the guys around, except for Tracy. Tracy wanted a Coke because he didn't drink before the show. And so Tracy, Ricky Rock was telling me, "Yeah, we want to try this old school." So we're just.
What are you laughing at?
Yeah.
Every time somebody chokes on him, I start laughing. I don't know why.
I was gonna say, every episode,
I'm listening. I can listen and laugh at the same time. I'm listening.
every episode, somebody chokes and Dink
Somebody
fucking
chokes.
giggles his ass off.
Right. I'm gonna choke at one point, and everyone's just gonna be dying.
We're gonna be dead. We're gonna be laughing because they're dead. No, but yeah.
That's cool. So were the VIPs necessary, or was it only you guys?
No, it was a packed show. It was a packed show.
Okay.
It was-
There was
You were just
7 people there.
That's what I was gonna say. If there was only the 8 of you,
No,
wow, those were well.
no, it was
VIPs were doing blow off the stripper's ass. That's
Right.
what VIPs.
Cocaine and hookers.
Right, fucking right, right
One
at
of
the
those things we
buffet.
got there, get there like 2 hours early. We got there 2 hours early, and we're like the only ones that listen to the email. I guess I don't know. My other honorable mentions, obscure, but I forgot about this because I do remember now being a thing. Is the band called Class of '99?
Oh
Do we remember them?
no,
No.
As soon as I bring this up, they are Lane Staley from Alice in Chains,
oh,
Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine,
whoa,
and Stephen Perkins from James Addiction, Martin Lenoble from Porno Papyrus, and
wow,
Sarah Latelic from Collective Soul. So I didn't remember.
Get
the
the
band.
fuck out, really?
So they had they were featured on the soundtrack for the movie The Faculty.
oh yeah,
They
Yes,
had
I
they
knew
had
that.
a radio
Oh,
hit.
shit.
of the remake of Another Brick in the Wall Part 2.
Yes.
And
I
on the
knew
track,
that.
they
I
have two
forgot
tracks.
about that. Oh my
So did
god, I
I.
remember that now.
And so
Holy
they were a
shit.
band who was supposed to get together. They were supposed to do an album, but we all know what happened with Lane. This
Right,
is
right,
Lane's very last recording. In fact, if you listen to Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, you can hear the lisping, and you can hear doesn't have the power he did before. So it is his last recordings, but it was supposed to be an actual band. So it's always, I put on there as of like what could have been type of thing.
Yeah.
Forgot about that,
like
man.
that.
Good night.
Oh my god.
That's a good list, man.
That's a
fine.
really good list. You've got
I gotta
like
check some of
3
those.
bands for me to look up and one to
Right.
remember.
No pressure, Jimmy.
I feel pretty confident in my list, and we were talking earlier about that line, that line between our ages, where I'm over here and you guys tend to be over here with some of the grunge stuff. I'm going to start number 4 with a very recent project, and it is a Ray Luzier project, who is currently the drummer for Korn. The bass player in this project is Doug Pinnick from King's X.
Yeah.
And the guitar player is George Lynch. They are called KXM. K is from King's X, or from Korn. X is for King's X. And M, I don't know where the fuck that comes from. But
they just disregarded George Lynch. They just said M.
Right. Yeah. They got 3 albums, and it's, I don't know if you guys have you guys ever heard of King's X? Have you guys ever listened to King's X?
I've heard of them. I don't know their stuff.
I've heard of them like Dick, but I haven't.
Brief history. When King's X first came out, they were a godly band. They were Christian adjacent. They spoke a lot about spirituality and God. No, adjacent. I mean, they weren't like a Christian band. They weren't Striper, for God's sakes.
They weren't Striper, right?
They spoke a lot of religious overtones and spirituality. And if you ever you guys need to take, I don't know, 15 minutes and listen to 3 King's X songs. Doug Pinnick's voice is so fucking spiritual and empowering, and he's deep and soulful. And he's like 6'3" and weighs 10 pounds. And yeah. And I mean, obviously, we all know my George Lynch love, and Ray Luzier. It's the best drumming he's ever done on any albums. All 3 of those albums are amazing.
Bold statement.
By the way,
I'll give you a couple singles to look up. Is Time Flies is one of Rescue Me. George Lynch, obviously, I'm a huge fan, and I think it's his best work that he's ever done. He's got some great stuff. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
I gotta check it.
Well, tell them the other caveat of the band. Tell them the secret of what their process of writing is.
You tell me.
They bring nothing to the studio. They're not allowed to bring any existing riffs or any ideas they had before.
Well, they do it all when they're together?
On the fly, yeah. In fact,
that's kind of cool, actually.
George talks about, I think that's really cool, personally.
George talks about how he brought a couple things and said, I just brought this. And what's his face? The drummer was like, no, dude, that's something you had before. We're not doing
Go fuck yourself.
Right, go fuck yourself.
We're that for something else.
Creative
that's your solo album, dude. That's your solo album.
Right.
Well, also, when they do that, they're like, are you ready? They hit record. They're not just sitting in a room writing songs. They're recording, and they do everything on the fly. And then they break it down and make it a song.
That's really
cool.
What's really cool is where they've recorded. It's called Steakhouse Studios in Northern Hollywood. I'm just going to name a couple bands that have recorded there. And it is Anthrax, For All Kings, was recorded there.
Great album.
Dink, you're going to like this. Steve Lukather, which I always thought it was Lukather. He recorded 5 albums there. Papa Roach, Weezer, Coheed and Cambria, Queens of the Stone Age. dun, 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 and Pink recorded 2 albums there.
Wow.
It's all on this Rat Pack Records. It's a low end record label, and it's for artists that want to be artists. They're not like doing starving artists and stuff.
Right.
So yeah,
that's really cool that they're creative in the same room, and I am craving a steak now.
There you go.
Oh yeah,
I was laughing because I don't think they want to hear their label known as low end.
Low end. Did you say the M is for mob?
Mob,
yes.
The M is for mob. Okay.
Mob.
I got too excited. I got too excited for that.
I'm not a huge King's X fan, but I do listen. But I do appreciate them. But I will say this: listen to Dogman. That's my favorite album by them. It's a killer.
King's X.
King's X. Yeah.
King's X. Yeah.
Yeah. King's X. So yeah, if you're gonna listen to King's X, listen to Dogman because that's I think the most accessible. It's kind of grungy, kind of progressive at the same time. Still,
that's some stuff.
For me, I would say Faith, Love, and Hope is
which is the most
accessible because it's not love, and that's their big song.
Yeah.
All
right. For me, I did so much research into my third pick. And I'm fucking throwing it away because of the research I found. I'm not going to say their band name. I'm not anything. The singer. What's that?
Did you find out they're Nazis?
No, close enough. The singer died of AIDS, and he was such a douchebag. I love this band so much. He was such a douchebag. He knew he had AIDS, and he was having sex with all these women to the point where the label will not sell the catalog back to the guitar player, will not put it on Spotify, will not do anything. So I foregone that and went with Power Station.
Oh, it's not their gene. Okay.
Oh, now, but later I'm going to have to look up.
I'll tell you, it's Badlands. The band is Badlands.
Wow. I didn't dig in, but I saw them. Well, because of course, to make sure you don't miss anyone, I did do a search of supergroups and just kind of quickly scrolled through because I have my own choices, right? But I saw them on the list, but I never really dug in. But good to know.
No idea who they are.
I love. Okay, well, I'll tell you. Jakey Lee is a guitar player.
Yeah, Eric I thought Singer, it was Jake, right?
Yeah, Eric Singer, famously from Kiss and 15,000 other bands. Greg Chastain, who's from Surgical Steel, Chastain, Dio, and Jesus, I'm forgetting someone here, but I'm not gonna say his name. Fuck him.
Yeah.
So
it's not Billy Joel though.
Fuck him. He fucked everybody else, right?
I will now listen to Billy Joel because of this. But no, Power Station. Power Station. Robert Palmer, John and Andy Taylor, the drummer, Tony Thompson. He has a thing about him that only 3 drummers can ever say. Phil Collins, John Bonham, and himself. The only 3 drummers to ever play live with Led Zeppelin.
Get the hell
Did he
out.
play at Live Aid? No.
Phil Collins played both sets.
Yeah,
it was a debacle. Yes, but there was going to be a Zeppelin reunion, and Tony Thompson was asked to stand in, and they played one live show, and it was falling apart because Jimmy Page got into a really bad car accident and kiboshed the Zeppelin reunion. But Tony Thompson's known for being Chic's drummer, La Freak.
Right.
And Good Times. Good times.
Yep.
Diana Ross's I'm Coming Out. Yep. Diana Ross's I'm Coming Out and Upside Down.
Beauties.
He was the drummer for David Bowie's Serious Moonlight Tour. He's played with everyone. He's just fucking amazing. Power Station. I mean, if you don't know, Bang a Gone. T-Rex's Get It On, Bang a Gone, T-Rex, and Some Like It Hot. If you listen to that album and you listen to the first 30 seconds of either of those 2 songs, you'll hear Tony Thompson's just fucking badass. And Robert Palmer, he did a lot of like soft rock, kind of almost yacht rocky kind of stuff, Blue Eyed Soul. And then when Power Station came together and John and Andy Taylor brought this to him and said, hey, I want to get something more hard rock out of you. And they got it. I mean, it's a beautiful album. You can actually listen to this album. We've talked about this albums you can listen to all the way through. And this album it's a killer album. It's really a beautiful album. And it's so much melody, so many harmonies. And John Taylor sings a lot of backups on this. So I'm a huge Power Station fan, and I'm glad that you said that earlier.
I still kept their CD. Like I still have a limited amount of CDs that I've kept throughout the years, and that's one of the ones that I've kept because I like the band so much.
Oh, it's a great album.
Yeah.
So number 3 might be a little bit of a dink rule for me. Or I'm sorry, number two. And it's Mr. Big.
Wow.
Paul Gilbert came from Racer X. Just crazy, amazing guitar player and a total dork and a geek. He's not a rock star and he's fun to listen to. And Eric Martin came from the Eric Martin band and a bunch of other stuff. And obviously Billy Sheehan. And rest in peace, Pat Torpey. He was a big influence for me. They just did so many cool things with the format of the hair metal, if you will, glam, whatever. They took it and made it its own almost classification.
When it was almost done, right? They trying to keep it going, right?
Yeah, I mean, their biggest album was Lean Into It, and they had so many cool, like, Chris, this is going to go back to 71 in your pound cake. You talk about the drill, and about 4 months earlier, Mr. Big had a song called was it Daddy Brother Lover Little Boy? The electric drill song. The whole solo, the bass player and the guitar player use a drill while they're playing the solo, predating Pound Cake.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. And another sidebar is before for my pick, Richie Casson also replaced Paul Gilbert. Yeah, on their fifth album, fourth album, something like that. Yeah.
Was that Bump Ahead?
No, that was it's Actual Size. That's the album carrying like the skyscraper.
Yep.
The skyscraper.
Lean Into It. It's the only one I ever had, and I think it was I bought it for the ballad, right?
They had after that. On Bump Ahead, they had the cover of Wild World. They also went right before they were recording Lean Into It. They did a soundtrack that I was going to put on my list, previously noted, from Navy SEALs. They had 2 songs on there.
Wow.
Yes.
Shit.
Dude,
that would have been a real throw in there. Like we would have been like Navy SEALs.
It was going to be an honorable mention, and I knew this was coming up, so I saved it for this.
Nice.
Also, originally, Mr. Big was Eric Martin, Steve Stevens, and Greg Bissonette.
Wow. Did Stevie go back with Billy, or why did he not follow through?
Yeah, no, he went to the Atomic Playboys. And then right after that, he went with Vince Neil.
Yeah.
Steve
Stevens, another guy I still think is unheralded and underrated as a guitarist.
Yes, agreed.
And Greg Bissonette bowed out because David DeRoss said, no, you need to stay with me, and we need to do this Skyscraper thing album.
We've talked before about the past about Steve
amazing
Lukather.
album.
I'll watch anything with Steve Lukather. I'll do the same thing with Greg Bissonette. If hearing him talk about drums and music, man, is just him and Lukather are on a different level than anybody else. They're just so passionate. They're still like students of the medium, Nice.
So, all right, I guess I'm going with my number 1, and I'm completely breaking my mold here because I am a complete adoring fan of these 3/4 guys. They have where is it? I think it's 12 studio albums, 9 live albums, 26 videos. It's Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
Who?
What?
Yeah, they're on my radar too. I just couldn't get them in. Like, but that's some great material, right? Like
They're up there. They're up there. Yeah.
Well,
I respect.
what I like about it was actually more of the background of. I mean, I love the music. Don't get me wrong. The background. They were the first arena band ever. The Beatles had done an arena, and the Stones had done an arena, but the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young actually did 30 dates and 23 arenas. The first band to ever do an arena tour. They called it the Doom Tour because it was absolutely horrible. They
So they had a blast.
What did I do? What did I miss?
They called it the Doom Tour.
Oh, yeah, it was horrible.
Absolutely horrible.
Absolutely
Horrible. That's what you missed.
Oh, when
Absolutely horrible.
oh shit.
the whole history behind them is they never did 3 CSN albums and then Neil Young joined. They had to do every other album basically because Neil Young couldn't get his shit together. He couldn't like organize himself to like, okay, let's do this. Everything was, there was so much shit. David Crosby got arrested. All of them had to go to rehab 7 or 8 times. There was jealousy. They were all fighting over music to the point of one time Crosby, Stills, and Nash were recording an album without Neil Young because they wanted to do a fluid album without controversy. And Neil Young was hanging out in the bushes. And one of the studio guys is like, hey, is that Neil in the bushes? They all had to stop recording and go out and say, hey, Neil, what's going on? He goes, oh, I dropped my keys. And he just walked away.
I dropped my title.
Right? Exactly. Just threw it on the dash. Fuck it. We're going to go make fucking food warmers. Yeah. And ultimately, they stopped playing together because David Crosby is such an asshole. He started talking shit about Neil Young's girlfriend at the time, Daryl Hannah, and who is it? Stephen Still's girlfriend, which I have her name here, I forgot. Broke them up 3 years before their 50th anniversary, and they said "fuck you" to each other.
Wow.
So I mean, the history of it all is just I don't know. The music is amazing. The history is all consuming. It's just as crazy as their catalog.
Well, speaking of Daryl Hannah,
you got a Canadian in there too. That's nice.
Right. That
You're
clearly
welcome,
made a
Neil
big
Young.
splash.
Right. Keep on rocking the free world, boys.
Just give a Daryl Hannah reference. That clearly made a big splash.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
My name is.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Neil Young obviously has some heavy ties to Ontario and Manitoba. Like he grew up here in Winnipeg and then later moved to Omimi with his dad, right? So
Omimi, the Cheese Factory Road.
Yeah. But he spent a bunch of years here in Winnipeg. His mom's from Winnipeg, right? So they claim him as their own, and then Omimi or Ontario claims him as their own. And obviously Crosby, Stills, and Nash weren't really looking to claim him at times. Right? They're the bushes, Neil. You fucking sideburn freak.
I saw Neil in concert though on the Rockin' in the Free World concert album, and it was pretty cool because it was Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Neil Young.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Well, Pearl Jam
really
had
good.
Like Eddie had a boner for him, right?
Pearl Jam came out and did Rockin' in the Free World encore with him. Oh my god, unreal!
And that was Neil had an album out then too, right? Like was that
was that Freedom?
Was that like
it was Freedom? It was Freedom.
Freedom. Yeah. And he owes that whole album to Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Downtown. Let's have a party.
Great list.
So I mean,
that's a really good list.
I have 2 honorable mentions, and they're more of my modern vein. And that's Down. Philip
Nice.
Anselmo from Pantera and Pepper Keenan from Corrosion of Conformity. The first album I loved so much, I overplayed it. NOLA is the name of that album, and then Down 2 and Down 3, they got convoluted, but it was amazing. And Blue Murder.
Yeah.
No.
Blue Murder is a really storied thing. I mean, ultimately, John Sykes from Jesus, he played with Thin Lizzy, well known for Whitesnake. Ultimately, is what it was.
They were Deep Purple too, right?
Deep Purple, yeah. And their drummer Carmen Apice,
Nice.
the bass player came from like so many different bands. That first album, their big song was Jelly Roll. Just a huge fan of Blue Murder. John Sykes, I was really, rest in peace. John Sykes passed away fairly recently, and that one affected me because he was a part of my musical upbringing. So yeah, that one affected me.
Yeah, I think we had it on our Facebook page, right? Go back and check that.
You did. Thank you for putting it on there. That meant a lot to me to put that one on there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess in closing, I'm gonna list off a bunch of supergroups that we did not talk about today, which is hard to believe because we talked about a lot. I'm a huge fan of John Waite, so Bad English.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
When I See You Smile.
Yep. Well, you like that, don't you?
I like it.
We recently talked a lot about David Bowie, and there's Tin Machine.
Oh yeah, Tin Machine's I love that album, man.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Damn Yankees.
Love Tommy Shaw.
Big.
Hate Ted. Anyhow, go ahead.
Yeah,
Ted falls into that personality versus talent. He's just such a douche, right?
Well, I like
He's not even that talented, really. He had one, like when he was a solo, would he have one real hit? Really? Maybe
that's a good song. Everything else is bullshit.
I'm actually going to argue with that one, Chris, because he's got a lot of really good songs out there. He's a douchebag. He's a whatever you want to call
overrated guitarist.
I can actually differentiate. I've seen him live, and he played for 2.5 hours straight without stop playing, and I was so fucking impressed. I thought it was
God,
great.
You love Dog Eat Dog, Wango Tango. Oh yeah.
I'm not a big fan of any of that. What you just mentioned. I mean, maybe he is good live, which I've never seen, but I just don't like his music.
Yeah, Lita Ford opened up.
Before I knew that he was a fucking idiot.
Yeah, me too. Anyway. Yeah, I've never liked him.
Yeah, I can separate his bullshit from his music.
Oh,
but all right, on to other bands. Joe, you should know this one. Contraband.
Ooh, I thought about those guys. They weren't on my list, but I did think about them. Yeah.
Slash's Snake Pit.
Yeah.
Meh.
Yeah. Velvet Revolver.
Of course. Yeah.
Short-lived Zwan. Do you guys remember that one?
No.
Billy Corgan separated from Smashing Pumpkins and pulled in a bunch of other relative musicians and did Zwan.
Wow.
We did not mention Blind Faith.
I mentioned them, but yeah, no one.
You did? Okay.
I love Steve Winwood. Like he's probably top 10 or top 15 vocalist for me. I love his voice.
Really?
Yeah, I really like him. Like I like his work with the three groups: Traffic, Spencer Davis Group, and Blind Faith. I love his solo stuff. It's a little poppier, right? But
yeah. Well, unlike him, I was able to find my way home.
Right. And Ginger's there too, right?
You got the Highwaymen. Old school country, kind of badass. I mean, you can never go wrong with Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash.
Right.
The Firm.
Yep. And Firm was on my list. Yep. First album is really, really good.
Nikki Sixx and Tracy Guns had a little Brides of Destruction.
Brides of Destruction,
okay, Brides of Destruction, okay.
And Hell Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah, for sure. They were on my show.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
And then my last one that I absolutely love, and they have another album coming out here shortly. Is Kotzen and Smith? It's Richie Kotzen and Adrian.
I thought
Smith.
you might have them in your top because we talked about this, right?
Yeah, no, I am a big fan. I'm looking forward to the new album, but that's what I have for you guys. I mean, anything to add to that?
I will only add they are not a super group, but we mentioned them a couple episodes ago. But Hearing Aid.
I mean, can you
the superest of supergroups?
Huh?
Right. I mean,
yeah.
You can't go. We Are the World, the biggest supergroup ever. I mean,
right. We had one here in Canada.
Can I just say one thing though? We brought up Power Station. I love their first album. But I want to know from Chrysalis and Capitol why their second album is still not on streaming or anywhere to be found. Because the second album's really fucking good too. The second album was released in like 95, 96, like years after.
96, I believe.
Yeah, really good. Yeah. The only album that's on streaming is the first album.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, I mean, it didn't make radio airplay, so they're gonna, do their thing with that. Why would they spend the time and the money to push that out there and have to pay to play the musicians? If
it costs me, an independent artist, $50 a year to produce as many albums I want a year, distribute, I should say, under that one album or that one artist. So it doesn't cost them that. Yeah, it's cheap.
Cheap pricks.
Well, the other thing that people don't realize about are these streaming platforms, XM, Spotify. The artists get paid under a blanket.
Oh yeah.
Because they have 15 songs doesn't mean they get 15 times more than everyone else. What happens is the original distributor, the original artist's behalf, they get paid $500,000 to release 20 artists. So they're not going to put 22 artists out there because then now they have to, shit runs downhill. So they're not going to put an extra 2% to that 1996 Power Station album if they don't have to.
Yeah, true. But it all depends on the artist too, because the Def Leppard, like notoriously for years, didn't have their stuff on streaming, so they reproduced their hits, and because they didn't have a clause in their contract for additional media, so they held out until they actually got their due. So they're one of the highest paid bands when it comes to streaming, which is still pathetic. It's like, I mean, it's awful. It's like, it was 0.0001 cent per play or something like that. It's awful.
Right.
Well, we're all
under one blanket. You don't want to know what I do under one blanket.
I think we have an idea. Dink.
Run.
Well, hey, we are running pretty long on this one again, and I thought this was going to be another one of those short episodes. So we're running a little long. So I'm gonna pull the plug. You guys need to really follow us. Just Ranked Pod. We have a website, justrankedpod.com, where you can go directly to and see everywhere we are: Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. Just Ranked Pod. You can go to our Facebook and see all of Dink's every 2 hours fun little music nods. Check it out and visit it and see the cool shit that he has put out there. And basically anywhere you get your podcasts. Check us out, please, you guys. Anything else?
Nope.
That's it for me.
Well, I think that was super.
All right, for me, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Thank you, guys.